Hi folks, welcome to this impromptu discussion on British politics that Dan and I are going to have, talking about the fallout from the budget and the way that the British political landscape is at the moment. Because as I'm sure you're aware, because if you're watching this, you probably work, you probably pay your taxes, you probably wanted a future in this country, and you're probably thinking, you know what, I'm not sure that's available anymore. And we're obviously really concerned about this because we're both fathers, we both have kids, we want them to have a future in the country, and we of course work and pay an inordinate amount of taxes. So we are like many other people of our sort of age cohort in the country, we're not happy. And we really are concerned about the state of the country and what's happening in the future. And so anyway, this, as you can see on Twitter, Reform UK tops out a new poll after the budget fallout. So this poll was done on the day of the budget by Find Out Now. Now, it's probably fair to assume that people knew something about the budget because a lot of it had been leaked ahead of time, and so people had some impression of what was coming in the budget. And I don't know how long it took them to create a sample of 2,555.
But it can be done online now, so it can be done extremely quickly.
It can be done online. I don't know if Find Out Now does do online polling, though, but it's entirely possible. And it could have been done after the actual budget was released, which was at 12:30. So it's fair to assume that people have got a fairly good idea of what the budget is about.
Well, she leaked everything that was in it months in advance, and also a whole bunch of stuff she didn't even do in the end.
Yeah. So afterwards, as you can see, Labour Party are on 15%, 2 points behind the Greens, 3 points behind the Conservatives, and more than half down on Reform. And this is very interesting to me because the general smear campaign against Nigel Farage, with him being a teenage jokester, making Nazi jokes and things like that, well, that's done nothing to impact his numbers. These numbers have been incredibly consistent.
Well, they've been calling him racist for 20 years, so I mean, it's not like, you know, if you were going to be bought by that line, you would have done it about 20 years ago.
Yeah. But the point is, the smear campaign has had no effect on Nigel Farage's polling. He's been around a third of the electorate for, well, ages now, since he took basically control of the Reform Party. And this has impacted nothing. And so I think they're probably, the collective centre, so the Conservatives and Labour, are probably looking at this and realising that, again, Nigel Farage has eaten their lunch completely. He basically has as much as they have combined in himself. So he is going to, when this is mapped to a map, you'll have to excuse that this is done by Stats for Lefties, but it's not looking good. I mean, well, for them.
Well, I quite like the look of this poll, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I should frame that position. I was speaking from within the frame of being part of the Uniparty. It's not looking good. As a zero seats campaigner for both Labour and Conservatives, I'm totally in favour. This is incredible. So
I should point out quickly with polls is that the polls are fairly decent at making predictions when you've got two outcomes, like a Brexit outcome or Labour Conservative. They start to get a bit wonky when you've got, you know, essentially we've got four parties, so the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, Labour and Conservatives, and all of them are jostling around in effectively second place. Polls tend to get a bit wonky around that, so don't be surprised if it actually comes out different. But the shape of it is Reform are going to win a majority, and everybody else is fighting over second place.
Yeah.
But that second place is going to be miles away.
Irrelevant, essentially, to anything Farage wants to do. So I think there are a bunch of things worth extracting from this. I think you're completely correct that the polls for the second, third, and fourth parties are going to be a bit wonky, as in, you know, it could be up in the air anywhere, right? But assuming that things go as just in a rough direction that we're being shown here, I think it's fairly safe to say that Reform are going to win a majority. That is enough for a majority. It's not a particularly thumping majority or anything like that, but it is enough to form a government, and Farage will be in the enviable position of not having any factions within his own party. He will have created 368 new men out of nothing, and they will only have loyalty to him. They're not going to have...
Well, they would have been purged by now if they didn't have loyalty to him. He's very good on purging anyone who isn't entirely on his...
But even if he hadn't purged them, they're not party. They're not experienced politicians who have had a party that they've been in for a long time, formed connections, joined unions or any other special interest groups from within the party. Like, none of that exists in Reform at the moment because it's such a narrow tower of Nigel Farage and nothing else around, that he's going to raise these people out of the ground and they will require him for their legitimacy and position. Right, so that they are going to do whatever Nigel Farage wants.
Well, interestingly, some commentators have actually suggested the opposite on this, because I've not seen any evidence of it, but what Zaya Yusuf, who's really running Reform, keeps on saying is that they're going to get people of high quality. I haven't seen any evidence of it, but let's just go on their word. Let's say they go out and they find business leaders to run in all of these seats.
Yeah.
His view is that these people are going to be extremely difficult to manage because they've all done things before and they're going to be able to, have their own opinions on how things should be done.
Yeah, I'm going based on the council elections that happened in fairly recently, back this year, where they literally just took like 19-year-olds.
Yes.
And like anyone who was prepared to stand as a councillor who, I guess their automatic software didn't flag up suspicious.
So that's what I have actually seen from Reform.
Yes.
It's not what they claim they are doing.
Yeah, they can claim anything they want, but I'm definitely going on what we've actually seen as historical precedent. So I think there'll be essentially 368 noobs who don't really know much about politics, but are concerned about the way the country is going and view Nigel Farage as the kind of stick with which to beat the establishment. Because I think a lot of Reform's vote is predicated on a general opposition to the current status quo.
It's a revulsion against, politics as it has been done for, post-war at least, probably longer.
Possibly not quite that far. I think a lot of people are viewing this as a sort of the 2000s politics, really, the politics of...
the Blair era.
Yeah, the Blair era. And so I think that a lot of people are just using Reform as a stick with which to beat these old parties. But that means that Nigel Farage's MPs, I think, will not be the best and brightest, but they will be people who are loyal to Nigel Farage. And so when Farage, if he were to bring into play something like David Starkey's great repeal bill, they'd vote for it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've been thinking about what the correct strategy for Nigel Farage is, and trying to marry up those two thoughts that I gave you a moment ago. I mean, actually, the logical thing to do would be to take complete noobs, 19-year-olds, retired people who've got no clue what they're doing, and completely fill the parliamentary party with them, and then don't appoint any ministers from them. Because what you can actually do is you can then go off and you can get a business leader who's got some running experience. You can say, look, we need you to become a minister. We make you a lifetime Lord, stick you in the Lords, and actually you could completely change the political model by just drawing out the best people, not the best from your 300 and whatever it is, 73 MPs.
Yeah, as I understand it, drawing from the MPs is convention, not actually a
you can
statutory requirement.
You can have a minister. You can have a prime minister in the Lords. You can have all of them in the Lords.
Yeah, so it is actually an option for him to do all of these things, and I mean, frankly, strategically, I think it would be a good option.
Yeah,
because then you have a reliable backbench core that will just vote through anything that you say to vote through,
and you can get anyone you want to be a minister,
and you can get the talent to actually,
which is closer to the American model, except they don't have to make them a Lord first.
Exactly, and so that actually, I mean, I don't think Nigel Farage is going to wield this power that he'll gain very effectively. Excuse me, but that would be a very definite option for Nigel Farage to really start leathering into the system. And he will be able to basically do what he wants, because like I said, he's not going to get a backbench revolt.
Well, he'd be able to do what he wants if he manages the civil service correctly.
Well, yeah.
And this is my big concern with it. So I have not seen anything from Nigel Farage that suggests otherwise, that he is going to go in there and he's going to sit the civil service down and say, basically, these are my list of factory things written on the back of an envelope. Go off and do them. Now, Tony Blair wrote a book on leadership recently where he explained how it is that you change a country. And Tony Blair is the only man in this country the last 50 years who's radically changed the shape of the country. Love him or hate him, and of course we all hate him, he knows how to radically change a country. Now, in that book, he explains his first few days in Downing Street. And he goes in, and the civil service basically all turn up, all the senior chaps turn up and say, look, we've been reading your manifesto, we're ready to go on this stuff. And he described his reaction as being utterly horrified by that. He told them in no uncertain terms, no, you are not doing this. He had already arranged his people. He had lined them up. He had briefed them. He knew exactly what they were going to be doing. He put Mandelson in charge of that particular team. And these people went in and they stood over the civil servants and said, you are doing it exactly like this. That is the level of planning and operational control you need to influence in order to change a country. And I've just not seen the slightest evidence that Nigel Farage is doing that. But you're right that if he is doing this in the background, this sort of parliamentary change, he could do it.
Now, I actually wouldn't expect it to be Nigel Farage who would do this. I think that if we are speaking to one of his advisors, we would be thinking, does Zia Yusuf have this plan? Because I think everyone understands that it's Zia Yusuf that is making these kinds of decisions for Nigel, making plans for Nigel, as it were. And that's whatever, I don't care, right? He can be the Peter Mandelson or the Morgan McSweeney or whatever of reform. I don't really care. I just want good things done. And so Zia Yusuf needs to be the one thinking about this. But this puts the Reform Party in quite an enviable position because, like I said, effectively they could do pretty much anything, even with 373 seats, which is not a massive majority. But like I said, he's not going to get any backbench revolts, so he should be fine. Right? He should be fine. All of these people will be hardcore Nigel loyalists. And when he says, right, folks, we're going to fix the country, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, they'll, he can easily rally them to get them on side. Probably won't even have to whip them. I mean, what's he going to have on them? Like they'll just be one.
Oh, they'll just do it anyway. Yeah. I mean, just to explain to any non-British viewers, the parliamentary system is absolute. So if Parliament wants to pass a law saying the sun won't rise tomorrow, they can pass that law. There's no separation of powers that says, no, that's unconstitutional, we can't do that, we're going to block that. They can pass any. Now, of course, the sun will rise tomorrow, so these don't have to be reality-based, but they can literally pass anything they want to. So if you were to get a proper nationalist party, I mean, you could radically change this country within 5 years, no problem.
Yeah, Parliament is the supreme power of the land. It's unbounded by a written constitution or the House of Lords, and even the Supreme Court is a very dicey proposition because
you can just wash it away.
Because it was only founded in 2009, so it's not like it has a long, venerable constitutional history that the public feels that we have to listen to them or anything like that. And he could literally just disestablish it, which he ought, really, frankly. So yeah, Nigel Farage will be put in a commanding position. But what will the second options be? So this 77 for the Liberal Democrats, 64 for the Greens, and then 45 for the SNP, 34 for the Conservatives, 19 independents, the Gaza MPs, 12 Labour, and 7 Plaid Cymru. This is where you get the kind of cascading effect of, I mean, I don't want to say crabs in a bucket or rats in a barrel or something, but
isn't the collective noun for a group of rats of Parliament?
It is actually, yes. Right. Which is presumably not coincidental.
No.
Anyway, so the as you can see, you've got the Liberal Democrats there who are predicted to be on 77 seats. But you'll notice that that's only going up by 5 seats. Because if we scroll down to the bottom there, you can see Labour are losing about 400 MPs. Now, this is a catastrophic wipeout. Worse than the wipeout the Conservatives suffered when Nigel Farage was cutting their vote by a third when Rishi Sunak called the election. So the Conservatives lost something like 250 MPs and now have something like 120 MPs, which is pretty bad, right? That was a pretty bad wipeout. For them to go down by 87 to 34.
Oh, it's an extraordinary. I mean, this is a complete autonomic reaction. This is a body puking out a foreign body.
Exactly, but the Labour Party are getting it worse. Now,
massively.
As far as I'm aware, there has never been a party that has lost 399 seats in a single election.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
we were talking beforehand with Bo about the election of 1922. That's an interesting one because we were talking about that also on our election stream whenever that was last year.
Let me just correct you because there in the 1920s there were 4 general elections. 4. in that 10-year period.
Right.
And so in the 1922 one, the Conservatives got 344, Labour got 142, and the Liberals got 115. So not a total wipeout at all. And in 1923, there's another general election. Conservatives get 258, Labour get 191, the Liberals get 158. So they actually do better there. It's in the election of 1924 that the Conservatives get 412, Labour 151, and the Liberals 40. Now, don't get me wrong, losing 112 seats is bad, but that's Rishi Sunak levels of bad.
Yes.
Right? This losing 400 seats.
But I mean, to quickly frame why we're talking about those elections, the very broad gist of it is that the Conservative Party had it might have been prior to 1920s. The Conservative Party had a big majority, and they got to the position where they were hated. It was very similar to the last election with Rishi Sunak. I can't remember why they were hated now. I wasn't there, but the thing was,
I did read a book.
Yes. They lost the election, and the Liberals came in a big way, and it looked very similar to the last election. Yeah. Now, why that was interesting is because at the time you would have thought, okay, the Tories are finished. What actually happened is because the Liberals got a big majority, they then took ownership of this situation and did nothing to make anything better. If anything, made everything worse. And actually, it was the Liberals that were wiped out. Okay, they weren't wiped out immediately.
Well, it wasn't that the Liberals won a majority, but there was hung parliaments and things like this.
I see.
And so there was this general kind of...
but I think they took the premiership.
In 1923, Labour formed its first ever government, and then it was the fall of MacDonald's Labour government.
But it was a very choppy series where you radically, quite quickly got rid of one party and replaced with another, so the Liberals were Labour.
Yes, that is what happened. And then in 1929... there was a hung parliament with Labour being the largest party for the first time. So you had this a period of extreme political turmoil after World War One, and you are right. It was generally like a body just coughing out some thing that is clogging it up, and I think that's basically what we're saying with the Labour Party and the Conservatives here, because I mean to lose 399, and this is just one prediction. I've seen other predictions that have.
It's going to be of this order, though, isn't it?
Exactly. It's very likely to be of this order because everyone hates the Labour Party. So at the moment, Rachel Reeves is the most unpopular Chancellor in history. Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister in history since records began. And it's hard to imagine what a Labour voter looks like at this point.
Well, I mean, I can imagine he has 6 kids and he was born in Pakistan.
Well, yeah, but even then...
he's got the Green Party to go.
Yeah, they're Green or
the Independents.
Yeah, so what is the Labour constituency? And one can only assume, what is it, someone who works for the NHS? Like a career bureaucrat? Like this was the constituency... Because remember, the Labour Party, for anyone not aware, is traditionally the party of the working industrial North. And this got co-opted by Tony Blair and his managerial elite. Middle-class managerial liberal types who took over the Labour Party, because the Labour Party wasn't really a very liberal party, really. It was kind of reactionary in many ways. It was always historically the most, it was parochial, right?
If you go back to certainly the 70s and perhaps the 80s as well, it was the Conservatives who were more pro-immigration because it was the business stance. Yeah. Labour back then were about the unions, and they were dead against immigration because it replaced their workers.
Yes, and this is why you've got Tony Benn, Jeremy Corbyn, that sort of strand of the Labour Party is the true Labour Party. Like that's the true sort of, and it used to be deeply parochial and frankly incredibly xenophobic, and not just outside of Britain either. Xenophobic to the south, xenophobic on class. It was like
sexist as well. I mean, they had all the virtues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were pretty good in their day. But this got subverted by Tony Blair and frankly woke liberalism. So now Labour has to become an internationalist party that doesn't care about its own nativist working class base and is interested in international finance and international business and becomes the party of that. So, okay, that's fine. They managed to steal the party from its actual core, and that core has just gone to Nigel because Nigel has basically appealed to them on the grounds of 20th century patriotism. He said, he's like, representing the sort of bulldog nationalism that the working classes of this country have been born and raised in and truly believe in.
But it's the somewheres versus the anywheres.
Precisely.
And the vast majority of the voting population are actually somewheres. They're from a place. They have a family. They connect to wherever it was they were born.
They're from their local community.
And the Westminster class, I mean, Keir Starmer said it himself directly, he's far more comfortable in Davos than he is in Parliament.
So Tony Blair stole the Labour Party from Labour voters and turned it into a tool to remodel the country along the lines of what David Starkey describes as a slow-motion French Revolution, which I think is completely correct. This is why he begins this series of really radical constitutional reforms. Because if you think of previous Labour governments, they were always kind of going in a sort of left-wing direction, but it was often a kind of British left rather than a continental
But
left.
it was block peace. It's, okay, we're going to nationalise this.
Yeah.
And that was a big block piece that you could basically just undo. You could then come along later and you could privatise it. But it was these series of block pieces because the state at that time had a limited capacity and it couldn't do so much. The absolute genius of Blair was I'm going to take every ounce of power that Parliament has and I'm going to hand it to a quango or to an outside body. I'm going to create the Supreme Court. I'm going to create Ofgem. I'm going to create all of these regulators. I'm going to put all of the power in them, and I'm going to set these organisations up in a way that they will always be run by my ideological friends.
Yes.
And basically, when you get to the point of David Cameron, he doesn't care if he loses office.
And also David Cameron believed in it.
Well, and also David Cameron was effectively the Tory party was a Labour Party quango at that point.
Yeah.
So he runs everything. But even if an ideological enemy came in, it doesn't matter because everything is being run by his friends in this dispersed manner. And that is a hell of a lot harder to just. You can't just go and nationalise it and privatise that. You have to unpick all of these things.
Yes.
Parliament has the power to do it, but it's a lot of work now.
And that's exactly correct, though. Tony Blair changed the nature of politics in this country. Whereas before, it was assumed that Parliament would be essentially the seat of the genuine governance of the country. Tony Blair was on... Well, no. I mean, it wasn't Tony Blair that invented the quango. I think actually Margaret Thatcher invented the quango. But if you've got like half a dozen, okay, that's not such a big deal. There are currently 440 or so quangos running this country. That's a huge, and they control about 500 billion. I know 500. Is it 500 billion? I think it's 500 billion of government spending that they control.
Okay, well that's almost half of it.
Yeah, it's half of government spending is controlled by quangos. So it's just insane the scale of the managerial state that Tony Blair has been responsible for. And this was what Peter Hitchens' Cameron delusion was based in. It's like, well, David Cameron is just a Blairite. He is just a managerial liberal elite who is going to put a blue skin on it, but it will carry on down thing. And you can see this in the way that David Cameron began his party when he began his campaign to become Prime Minister, because of course he created all women shortlists, he created minority shortlists. He then in 2022 wrote an article saying, yeah, well, the Conservative Party was pale, male and stale, and I changed that. It's like, right, okay, so the revolution took place not only in the Labour Party but in the Conservative Party, and it's that revolution that I think is being rejected.
Yeah, I witnessed that firsthand because this was in the days when I was working in London, and quite often I'd finish work and I'd go down to Parliament. I'd go down because in those days you could actually just walk in. You're supposed to go through a registration thing, but if you know the system, you can just walk around it. No one gave you a hard time. So I quite often go down to the Strangers Bar in Parliament after work, and I knew a lot of the MPs there, and I was talking to the Tory MPs, and I was trying to say to them, look, we're coming to the end of the Gordon Brown government. The British public are rejecting this. They can see it's not working. This is the moment where you go back to your roots. And they were all saying to me, yeah, but look, Tony Blair won 3 elections. They all adored him.
Yeah.
They were all mesmerised by him because he was a winner, and they wanted that magic to rub off on them. Yeah. And the most significant thing that David Cameron did that when he came in, and you've already alluded to this, is that before then it was each constituency picked their MP. So you would have the Conservative Association for whatever it was, Winchester, Bognor Regis, and they would interview a whole bunch of candidates, and they'd be like, yeah, that's a Tory, we're having that one. David Cameron changed it so that they still got to do that, but only from an approved list.
Right.
And if he put, a bunch of women, ethnic candidates, a bunch of basically Liberal Democrats on that list, you had to
Trust
pick.
got in,
Yeah.
actually.
And the interesting thing is, you sometimes wonder why. Why is the Conservative Party so female and so ethnic? And the reason is because if you're a white man, you had to be quite un-Tory to get on that list. You had to be very Lib Dem to get on that list. If you're a black woman like Kemi Badenoch, you can get away with being an actual Tory because you're a black woman. And that's why when these conservative associations have to pick between that white man Liberal Democrat
Rory
or
Stewart
that
versus
based
Kemi Badenoch.
yeah, or that based black woman, they say, well, she's the only one who's actually conservative.
Yeah.
So I'll pick her.
Yeah,
and that's why the Conservative Party is full of ethnics.
Yes, and also full of Lib Dems.
Yes.
But no, you're. I think you're exactly right on this. But what I think that the polling here is revealing is literally the public saying, no, I'm tired of the Blairite consensus.
Yes.
I don't want the Labour Party.
Oh, it's a complete rejection. Because, I mean, in reform, stands to reason. But Lib Dems, they never went through this revolution. They're just a bunch of white middle-class parochial concerns, got a garden. I mean, they're just...
Too much noise on the trains.
Yes. Yeah.
I just don't like it. And that's the thing that I wanted to come to here, right, is with this. So the Conservatives and the Labour Party became the party of the international liberal order, right? They became... That's what the Uniparty is here to serve. We're here to serve the ECHR. We're here to serve the European Union. We're the WEF. We are the international managerial regime that has the liberal order, the rules-based international order that we are going to impose on the country and we're going to abide by come hell or high water.
Yes.
Because remember, at any point, the Conservatives could have just undone all of this.
The Conservative Party are everything that you just said, except we're going to do it in a slightly more competent way while packaging it as a right-wing thing. Yes,
and also, I mean, I would question that competence. I mean, the Boris wave is really one of the... I mean, Tony Blair must be grinding his teeth at the nature of the Boris wave because, of course, people can tolerate 300,000 net a year. They can tolerate that, and they have tolerated it. And so the project of the destruction of...
It was just clumsy.
Exactly. The destruction of the English nation carried on apace under Tony Blair and under Cameron. But Boris, obviously... not that competent.
If you're feeding poison into somebody's food, you do it subtly and a bit at a time. You don't just pour the whole bloody thing on.
Exactly.
Because they will notice.
Exactly. And that's what's happened with reform here. They have noticed. And so, but the point being, the natural constituency now of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are not British people. No. They began with the Labour Party making it about Tony Blair with his rules-based international order, and the Conservatives adopted that because Tony Blair seemed like a winner, because actually it was very difficult to detect that that's what had been done. Tony Blair was a magnificent orator. The Labour Party itself in the 2000s was very competent, whether you like them or not, and they accomplished all their goals. And suddenly they have a media apparatus that also believed in the goal. They had the clangocracy, they have the universities, and they have, how's this describe them? I mean, they've probably still got the trade unions, but that's not what I'm talking about. The veneer of legitimacy that comes from being welcomed in other spaces like it. So, for example, Tony Blair would have got rapturous, love from other European leaders or the European Union.
Oh, very much so, yes.
Things like
Remember,
this.
Yes.
Like, he would have had a lot of kudos come along. And so that's legitimizing. So it's like, oh, okay, well, he must be doing a good job. Everyone thinks he's doing a good job. And the negative consequences hadn't yet manifested in Tony Blair's premiership, because he was out in 2007, was it? Was it 2000? It was 2007, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah, it might have been. And then Gordon Brown came out. It was about then, yeah.
Yeah, Gordon Brown was out in 2009. During Tony Blair had the great fortune of having what was a really homogenous and prosperous country, and sneaking this in under the cover of night, and setting up actually a strange framework that now you can't get out of. So I think the electorate, like I said, is rejecting both Conservatives and the Labour Party subconsciously, of course. They're not thinking these things, but they realise that these things aren't for us, right? The Labour Party serves some other master. The Conservative Party serves some other master. Who doesn't look like he serves some other master? Well, Nigel Farage, actually. Now, I'm not saying Nigel Farage is perfect, but he's clearly not just one of them, because he was the outrider on Brexit.
Well, they have given him that. Because they have gone out time and time again and said that he is not us.
Yeah.
expecting people to go, oh, he's not one of you, oh, I don't like him then.
Exactly.
Actually, the precise opposite has happened.
Exactly.
Nigel Farage is a creation of the Conservative and Labour Party. They put him there.
Absolutely, and not just that, the media class as well, because he is good. He's a great rhetorician, and he understands their game, and he's played the media game quite well. Let's be fair. And so now Nigel Farage, whether on the right we're not happy with him being, a bit too centrist or whatever, it's not, that doesn't matter. From the normal Blairite position in the centre of the country, Nigel Farage does look like a right winger, and he looks like he's outside of the club, and that's where the objection votes come from. I don't want that. I don't want the Labour or the Conservatives. I don't want Blairism. I don't want the international managerial order. And Farage has a history of campaigning against it.
Yes.
That's what Brexit is. And so this, to me, is that giant paradigm shift immediately is fantastic to see, because we need to get off of this for a start. But then if you look at the rest of it, the Liberal Democrats aren't moving, right? In almost every election, the Liberal Democrats' constituencies look basically the same.
Yes.
Because the Liberal Democrats are a racial vote. They're a racial bloc based on Middle England. I mean, Ed Davey literally said, we're going to become the party of Middle England. And what they represent are the prejudices of the English middle class.
You don't vote Lib Dem unless you've got a big garden. I mean, that's the way it works.
Exactly. You're in a nice 4 or 5 bedroom house. It's detached. You're in the suburbs. You've got a nice big garden. Everyone around you is English. Yes. And you sit there and go, well, yeah, of course I'm for, liberal values. Of course I'm for British values. Of course I am. But the second there's some ethnic on the train who's making too much noise, well, you strap on your bloody armband, and you're like, no, gulag. That person, I mean, that's literally Ed Davey's campaign. So Ed Davey doesn't. Everyone was perplexed by his postmodern anti-political campaign, where he's like a fairground or going down a water slide.
So I haven't made up my mind on this yet, and maybe you have, but I'm trying to figure out, is Ed Davey's campaign genius or botch? Because he has basically positioned himself to be the burger meat in a McDonald's burger, which is completely and utterly tasteless and therefore unoffensive.
Well, it depends what you want, right? So if you are the sort of person who enjoyed the society of the early 2000s, you don't particularly want any changes, you don't really want to be involved in politics altogether, the Liberal Democrats are your
because he just doesn't give you anything to be offended at. His campaigning is, here I am today at a theme park, here I am falling off a water slide or something. It's like, well, how am I going to get upset with any of that?
Exactly. Silly Ed Davies falling off a water balloon or whatever. But that's the point, because what he's saying is, I'm not going to try and do anything silly. I'm not going to do anything, really, is the pitch.
I'm the non-political politician.
Exactly. And so you can go to your garden parties and everyone will have a reasonably good opinion of me, because I'll be the centrist dad who just represents Middle England. I'm just an English dad. I'm going to have a barbecue with my wife and 2 kids. And it's complete normalcy.
If somebody brings somebody to your barbecue and they announce themselves as being a Reform voter, argument follows. If they announce themselves as a Labour voter, argument follows. Conservative, argument follows. Green, argument follows. Liberal Democrat, oh, that's nice. Here's a burger.
So the Liberal Democrats basically represent an English social club. They genuinely do. And this is why they've had such reliable constituencies in the areas least affected by immigration. Liberal Democrat constituencies, as you can see, are mostly in the southwest, where there is very, very, very little immigration, and therefore politics is an abstract game of morality through first principles.
So I can guarantee all of those Lib Dem constituencies, and I live in one, by the way. They all put Ukraine flags up because Ukraine is the perfect issue for them. It's a moral stance that isn't happening in my garden.
It's a long way away.
Yes.
It's a long way away, and doesn't affect anything about their lives. And it's all hypothetical.
It does affect something about their lives, but they don't know that.
Yeah, but they can't tell. Yeah, and they're doing reasonably well. The household income's probably 100k. So they're doing well, and they can afford a nice mortgage. They've got their garden, and they're looking to retirement. They're in their late 40s. it's all gravy for the Liberal Democrat. But that's because diversity hasn't happened to them. And I do think that, I mean, remember the Southwest was as Brexiteer as anywhere, right? The Southwest, 54% Brexit, which is just as, I mean, it's not like the Northeast, which was...
Well, that still means 46% are against it.
Sure, which is how we're getting Liberal Democrats.
You only need a third of the vote to win a seat.
Absolutely, which is why you're getting Liberal Democrats. 'Cause the Liberal Democrats have famously an amazing ground game, as in they target constituencies that they know are majority white, majority English, and well-to-do.
If you live in a Lib Dem constituency, you are bombarded with leaflets. I mean, it's an order of magnitude different to all the other parties combined.
Yes, and they're very, very targeted in these areas because they know that they can get the Middle English. They can get those people who are not affected by the financial downturn, by immigration, by daily politics, and they become a kind of safety blanket for these people. It's like, oh, I'm going to vote for the Liberal Democrats because nothing will happen.
Yes.
Like the local MP isn't going to go on a series of radical reforms in the constituency or something like that. They're not going to do anything. They're going to be perfectly presentable when the Christmas lights are turned on. They're going to be just, it's just, normal, complete normal.
Zero drama party.
Exactly. But they are an ethnic party. They're an ethnic expression of the Middle English, and they consciously know themselves to be, even if their actual voters and even their MPs don't even really
I'm trying to think if I
Davians.
think of a single Lib Dem, I mean, maybe there is one, a single Lib Dem MP who is an ethnic. None spring to mind.
They will have a couple.
They must do.
They will have a couple, but the ethnics that they'll have are very integrated ethnics.
Yes.
People who are born and raised here and have always been...
And have a big garden.
They're in the middle class.
Yes.
And they're the one ethnic on the street who has a great job, earns 100k
But he's a
year,
dentist. Yes.
And exactly. He's a dentist and he goes to all the functions and everyone... Look how not racist we are. We have our 100% born here, integrated, 100k a year dentist immigrant. So that we're not racist. We don't hang out in London with the drill gangs or anything like that, right? So, that's a great constituency to have as the second party, right? Because what this does, reform...
It's basically the Shire.
Exactly. They're the parties of the affluent shires, whereas reform have become the party of disgruntled England.
Yes, the average Reform voter is somewhat angrier. They have a smaller garden or no garden at all.
Yes.
They're pissed off.
Exactly. And as you can see, it's the entire sort of east of England, as well as parts of Wales, are just like, no, we're sick of this. And so it very much, this looks like a map of Brexit, right? This looks a lot like a map of Brexit, apart from the fact the Southwest has flipped to the garden party of the Lib Dems. But it's the resentful rage of the English that is being demonstrated in this. The Liberal Dems represent the English who are doing well and don't want anything to change, so the deeply conservative English, but the Reform represent the revolutionary English. We have had enough. I want change. I'm not having Blairism. You're destroying our country. This is a revolt that we're watching here. On both sides, actually.
Well, and it is magnified by this map, because what you're not seeing clearly with this map is that there are certain clusters. So you can probably make out London down there. Yeah. That has as many constituencies in it as that large sort of bulge just above it. That entire sort of large bulge with the yellow bit in the middle. There's just as many constituencies in that tiny little blob in London as there is in the rest of it.
Yes.
And that's where you're sort of hiding away some of these other... Well, you're hiding away most... You'll notice there aren't any Labour seats on here, but there should be 12. Yeah. You can see one at the top there because the rest of them are all bundled into the cities. But also, of course...
One here, one here.
I can't even make out that other one.
But you're going to have a bunch in London. But also, you're going to have a bunch of greens.
Yes.
Because there are supposed to be 64 greens on the map, and you can't see that.
So if you go back 20, 30 years, the Greens would have been competing for exactly the same seats as the Liberal Democrats. They have completely pivoted away from that. They are now basically the industrialisation Inshallah party.
Yes. That's exactly what they're. They're the Islamo-Communist Alliance of convenience against the majority English population of the country. And so, as you can see, they are congregating in those places that are either the most leftist or the most Muslim or immigrant. And so London and Brighton and Bristol and a couple of other places likely are going to end up going Green. But there's basically no threat from the Green Party.
To be fair, Brighton is as another constituency that should probably be Lib Dem.
Yeah.
Their old Green Party, Carol Danvers, I think it was. I mean, she was winning that seat. I mean, she's been winning it since the days of Blair.
Yeah.
The new Greens, they're inner cities, they've got big beards, and they've got a family of 7, most of whom are highly inbred.
Yes. And so the Green Party have a natural cap on the potential limit that they can achieve. Right? They don't represent the native population of the country.
Not at all.
They represent a bunch of radical student politicians and the ethnic minorities that they're weaponizing against the majority. So, I mean, 64 seats is not nothing. That's very significant.
No, and actually, given the vagaries of these polls, I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Greens were the opposition.
It could well be. But on the plus side, the Labour Party disguised itself as being for the majority population of the country, right? And so did the Conservatives. And so it was, what kind of interpretation for the majority do you want? But the Greens don't do any of that. The Greens don't pretend to be for the majority party of the population of the country.
No.
They have a gay Jewish leader and a Muslim Pakistani as the leader and the deputy leader. And so it's like, right, okay, this is not making present any natives at all.
No.
Right, and I'm not trying to, I'm not talking bad about them. It's just what is being made present. What does the electorate see with the eye when they are being lectured by Zach Polanski or Mothin Ali? Right, what they see.
It's a Middle Eastern party.
Basically, yes. And so they have a natural cap on their potential constituency, which is going to be those parts that have been diversified. So until the country is majority diversified, the Green Party are never going to win anything, so we don't need to worry about them. The SNP are, of course, another racial party, coasting on the fact that they've got Scottish in their name, and thankfully the Scots are presumably too drunk to actually look up what the Scots and the SNP are doing to Scotland.
Well, it's supposed to be the Scottish Nationalist Party, and there was, again, back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, they were a Scottish nationalist party. They then became the Scottish Internationalist Party by wanting to basically be ruled from Brussels. And now, I mean, I'm kind of surprised they're still doing as well as they were, because they had Alex Salmon, who was a charismatic leader. Then they had that little weird
Cranky girl.
Cranky girl, yeah, I can't remember what she was, and I'm not even sure where they've ended up anymore. So they're kind of running on fumes as well.
Exactly, they're just running on the name Scottish National. Yes, and the Scots are like, right, okay, it's not the English Conservatives, it's not the English Labour Party, it's not the English Reform Party, it's not
they're basically like a shitter version of the Lib Dems except for Scottish people.
Yes, that's exactly what they are. The Lib Dems for Scottish people, and this is why Reform. I mean, they've got one potential constituency in Scotland. Like Nigel Farage looks too English for them. And I think this is what the problem.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
and this is the problem they have with the Conservatives as well. They're the English Conservatives. They're the English Reform Party to the Scots. So I don't think they'll get anywhere in there. But thankfully, they won't need them. So what difference does it make? And then you've got the Independents, who'll be the Gaza MPs. They'll probably eventually form their own actual Islamist party. Unfortunately,
and maybe wrap the Greens into it as well. I mean, just chuck out the Jewish guy at the top, because I mean he's window dressing only. You might as well just form an Islamic party.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if one just comes out of the woodwork anyway.
And actually look at the numbers. If they were to do it, if they were to take the mask off, and I think they're a bit smarter than that, because they've got these clean-shaven gigolos that they put in front of the cameras. I think those guys would be saying, no, don't take the mask off. But if they did, on this poll, they would clearly be the opposition, the Islamic Party.
They would. But I think if they were to do that, the Greens would actually lose a core block of the voters, which are the ones who actually do care about the environment. Because you'll notice that the Greens,
there are still some of them.
Yeah, but no, there are. I saw a poll the other day internally in the Greens where it's about 30% of them actually are there for the environment.
Right.
But there's no other party that seems to be saying environment, so there's nowhere else they can go.
Yeah.
And so they're watching their purportedly environmental party getting diversified out of existence. So basically they will lose about a third of their own constituency when they finally go mask off as actually we're here for Islamo-communism, guys, not the environment at all. And so you've got this is the landscape in Britain at the moment. What else do I have here? So there are other ones who have Labour on 6 seats.
Wow, 6 seats.
And 12. So it's who knows, right? Who knows? But the point is, this is just a preposterous bloodbath and indicative that there is a political revolution happening in the country.
Should we talk about what Rupert Lowe should do?
Yeah, go on.
Might as well go back to the other one just to show us the numbers. But the question is, okay, at what point? Because we know that Reform are going to disappoint. I mean, we talked about on this stream. What is it that Nigel Farage and Zaya Youssef need to do? And it is an enormous amount of work. It's basically Trump 2.0. It's not Trump 1.
Yes.
If they do Trump 1, they're going to get hacked to pieces by this quangocracy, by the established left. I mean, the Bank of England will just rip them apart. You know, they're just waiting for them to do their first budget. They'll sell some bonds in the background. Things will blow out. The media will collaborate to write the stories. They're going to get picked apart if they don't go in there with a game plan, and I fear that's my concern. So I hope I'm proved wrong, but I think that Reform are going to be a disaster. They're terribly, terribly naive. So we obviously here, we much prefer Rupert Lowe because he actually knows what he's doing. He's run organisations, and also he's based. He thinks like us. He's ethnically conscious. He just says...
Jesus.
Yeah, he's Boomer Jesus, exactly. What should he do? Because at the moment, he's like, well, the Reform train is so strong. And actually, we talk about it all the time, but the attention span of the average voter is just Reform.
Yeah.
And they can't see that they're doing anything wrong, and they haven't got any wrong intentions. And they're not doing anything wrong.
They're not doing anything wrong.
No.
The average voter, people in the political sphere, forget that the average person doesn't want to be very involved.
And I have these conversations all the time with young people about politics, and they just say, oh, it's time for reform, it's time for reform.
Yeah.
And I thought, should I get into how he's probably... No, I won't bother.
No,
there's no point. There's no point.
Yeah,
so the question is, at what point does Rupert Lowe step up? Because, I mean, Reform would be in a champion situation if the top team included Rupert Lowe, and he was in charge of putting the plan together. But Nigel Farage is so ego fragile, he can't tolerate him. Yeah. So what does Rupert Lowe do? And at the moment he's decided, okay, well, now I'm going to have a movement so that I can connect things, I can have conversations, I can build coalitions, but I'm not actually going to go into the political sphere.
You know, that's
at some point it has to be political power.
Yeah, exactly. And he has said this expressly. But it's like, okay, well, to gain political power, you have to have people you can vote for.
And that gives him basically two options. One is to start his own party.
Yep.
I don't think there's any chance of him getting back into Reform, so it's going to have to be start his own party.
Yeah.
Or number two, if the Conservatives get desperate enough that they realise that they are going to become an ex-party, they would have to reach out to him and say, come and be our leader, and you've got a clean hand to do whatever you want.
I mean, honestly, the Conservatives are in such a dire strait at the moment. It's surprising they haven't already done this, right? Because, I mean, like, in an era of anti-immigration, putting an immigrant in charge of the party
yes,
is just genius.
Well, and the alternative is the guy who brought in 25,000 Afghans and lied about it.
Yes. The alternative is someone who has an awful record on
Robert Jenrick, yeah.
Yeah, and, is part of the Boris wave. So, and the thing is as well, politics is determined by the X factor, whether people want to admit it or not, right? So the only reason we have Keir Starmer is because Nigel Farage wielded his X factor against the Conservatives.
Yes.
Cut out a third of their vote, and in every constituency, just legged them, knocked their legs out from under them. So the Conservative vote completely collapsed, and Keir Starmer comes blinking out into the light, being like, oh, am I the Prime Minister? Oh dear. Because nobody thought Keir Starmer could have become Prime Minister in a normal electoral cycle. Like, if Nigel Farage was going to be like, okay, I'm going to stand down like I did for Boris or something, then we'd have a Conservative PM right now, right? But that didn't happen, and now Keir Starmer is, honestly, a genius move by Farage here. He's now saddled with destroying the Labour Party. So, superb. The Labour Party have got the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
And they all know. I mean, I haven't talked about the budget, but what the budget was, and I'll do a daily video on this shortly.
Yeah.
First of all, it was making sure that Keir Starmer stays in control of the Labour Party by throwing any unaffordable red meat to his backbenchers.
Great.
Number one, it was a jobs budget, and the job was his one job.
Yep.
Right. The second thing, it was throwing money at large immigrant families to accelerate the takeover of that. Yep. And number three, it was laying a huge fiscal bomb in 29, spurting. So all of the spending is front-loaded. All of the tax rises are back-loaded. All of those back-loaded taxes are things that will kill growth. So you'd be insane for reform to actually go ahead and do those things, because you'd just be killing the economy if you did it.
Yeah.
It'd be like applying speed fines to pay slips. You know, it's just, we're going to punishment fine you every time you get your pay slip, even more so than now. So they are perfectly well aware that they're not going to win the election, and that they have to poison the world to the greatest possible extent.
But not just this election, any election.
Oh yeah, it's if we can't have the country, no one will have it.
Exactly. If this plays out
Yes.
as Stats for Lefties here has projected, and again, this is not the only poll that has the Labour government completely collapsing, right? I mean, I've seen polls where they lose 100, 200, 300, you know, like their party is just in free fall. It's how far down they go, and it's potentially that they could go to nothing.
Oh yes, I mean, I expect they'll drag on with 1 or 2 seats for decades to come.
Yeah, they'll probably be like 12 Labour Party.
It'll probably be like that for the next 30 years, but
Yeah. Like with the Liberals.
I mean, another thing about the budget is, because I was watching the budget, I watched the PMQs just beforehand, and it was weird. And all the PMQs are like that now, because it's supposed to be Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch.
Everyone's thinking about Nigel Farage.
Yeah, they're supposed to be tearing chunks out of each other, and basically the two of them stand up and they're talking about Nigel Farage.
Yeah,
They both know what's going on.
Exactly. It's a parliament of zombies.
Yes,
right? It's a parliament of dead men walking. So we're going to lose nearly 500 MPs. Right, the parliament's only 650. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Parliament's only 650 MPs.
So what should Rupert Lowe do? Should he do this before the election, or should he wait until afterwards, when reforms start botching things up because they haven't thought it through?
Well, it's before I answer that, I think it's worth really emphasising the dead nature of the parliament. It's literally like the rump parliament at the moment, where they've got no legitimacy, they're not coming back, and they're just stuck in this place.
And it doesn't even look like it. There was a debate the other day, and I mean, I tweeted about this on Twitter, and I think a number of people basically had the same angle on this.
Yeah.
Is the discussion with Shabana Mahmood, and she was standing up, and the conversation was about how many immigrants do we let into the country?
Yeah.
And you see everybody talking about it. It was a collection of ethnic women deciding how many immigrants get to come into my country.
Yeah.
How the
Shabana Mahmood somehow had the far right position.
Yeah.
She was just using far right talking points to stamp them all down.
Yes.
You know, the Conservatives, I'm never listening to you. What could the Greens possibly have to add to this?
But nevertheless, it was a group of ethnic women deciding how many immigrants come into the country. The Parliament doesn't even remotely pretend to be a British Parliament.
It's not representative of the country at all. And that's why they're going to get cleared out. And it's like all of this, whether you like it or not, I think subconsciously this is the revolt of the English that we're watching here. They just don't articulate in such.
It's taken a while, but glad to see it.
But we do things slowly in this country.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's a parliament of zombies, dead men walking, and they're all about to get absolutely flushed out. It's going to be the most dramatic toilet cleaning in the world. Thank God, and it will be at least fresh and new. So one problem that we have is that it's difficult to predict what's going to happen in such turbulent circumstances, because I mean this is pretty unprecedented. Politics in Britain has been really sclerotic for a century. You know, it's been you're getting the Labour or the Conservatives to some degree. You know, and it's
been like that since whatever you said, 1924.
Yeah, 1929, I think it was. So it's turgid.
Yes,
and so a cleaning of the board being on the horizon is quite exciting. And so the question is, as you came to, what does Rupert Lowe do? Now, I don't have a good answer to this. I don't think anyone does. Because, like you say, you've got a few options. You could start a party. Right now, that's an uphill struggle. But on the plus side for Rupert Lowe is that he's already an MP and he has an incredible social media game. So, you know, tens of millions of people see... I was talking to my wife's aunt the other day. She's come around to visit. And she was saying, oh, yeah, this is all really bad. I keep seeing Rupert Lowe on my Instagram feed. And I was just like, she doesn't, care about politics, but it keeps coming up for her. And this is all becoming intrusive in her life. You know, politics
I don't use Instagram, so I'm glad to see that presumably he's all over Facebook as well, because that's where the voters are.
Yeah, he's got a really good social media team. We should take some advice from his team really, and build a social.
Well, we know them all, so
yeah,
why
exactly. And we for people who are wondering, we've only got one guy doing our social media.
Yeah, we're sending to Reform for a week.
It's not just that we should get a team of guys to do it.
Yeah,
But anyway,
we should.
The point being, Rupert Lowe is in a position where the Restore network that he's bringing together is a useful thing, because if he were to transform that into a party, I think he'd probably get a bunch of defections from Reform councils, like the local, what do they call them? The branches. I think he's apparently had a bunch of them contact him saying, well, we'd happily join you.
Oh, because Nigel shits all over the local constituency parties just as much as he does over people that try to be MPs for him.
All the time. No respect for them at all. And he'd get a bunch of the half-decent Conservatives flipped to him. And so he would have something, would erect itself out of the ground, and it would have some legs. He'd also, I mean, they've got tens of thousands, 30, 40,000 members of the movement already.
Well, and just huge kudos. I mean, if you start a new party, I mean, I love the guy, but Ben Habib, I mean, what has he actually managed to achieve with a new party? Nobody...
It wasn't joined up enough.
No.
That was the thing. I like Ben too, but I think that he pulled the trigger too quickly on Advance.
I think so. But if you become the leader of the Conservative Party, that is instant kudos.
That's true.
People all over the world know what the Conservative Party is. Yep. Every media institution, even if this happens and the Conservatives go down to, what is that? Is that fifth place or fourth place with 34 MPs? They're still going to be the Conservative Party, and they can still get themselves on TV whenever they damn well want, and they'll probably still be invited to Question Time all the time.
And if they got a radical leader who kept saying exciting things,
yes,
and the Conservatives started going up in the polls, because the public all know who the Conservatives are, they just are annoyed by the way.
If the Conservatives had a really strong survival instinct, and they do have a survival instinct, but if they had a proper survival
party
instinct,
in the world,
they do, yeah. What they would do is they would appoint Rupert Lowe now, and they would tell him, you can hire and fire everyone. And what he would do is he would basically deselect every single MP they have. Maybe one or two would stay on, and then he would rebuild them, and he would actually have something that could go from strength to strength as Reform prove themselves to what I think is going to happen is to be underprepared for the task at hand.
Completely.
Problem is the Conservative Party are too proud.
Yeah. But I mean, moreover, we're still 4 years out from an election, right? Nigel Farage, in 2021, joined Reform and built this up in 4 years to this. Okay. That's, I mean... Sorry, he didn't join in 2021. He joined in 23 or whatever. But the point is, Reform have gone from nothing to this in 4 years.
So that's debatable. Did Nigel Farage form the Reform Party in 4 years and get it off the ground, or is the Reform Party the Brexit Party that was UKIP?
Sure, it absolutely is the continuity of that. But Richard Tice kept this alive, and it was 2023, I think it was. He went back to it. But it was because it was beginning to pick up in the polls, right, ahead of the election.
And Nigel came back.
And when the Clacton poll came back, the Reform were going to win it. Because remember, it wasn't, and again, you wouldn't know from looking at this, but it really wasn't clear that Reform were going to win any seats.
Yeah, and that poor sod in Clacton, he had paid his deposit.
Totally backstabbed by Farage.
Yeah, totally backstabbed, chucked out. They didn't even refund him the deposit.
Yeah, they didn't do anything for him. They promised him a bunch of stuff, they did nothing for him.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just...
And it's this way that Nigel keeps treating people.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him do it dozens and dozens of times. And when he chucked out Rupert Lowe, for many of us, that was the last straw, because this man simply cannot be trusted. Which brings me back to the thing, I don't think they're going to be able to hire the talent, because the talent can perfectly well see what Nigel Farage is, and he's an egomaniac.
The second that you're inconvenient to him, or feel threatening to him, you're done. So the point being, it wasn't at all clear that Reform were going to end up in this position at all. And so, 4 years is a long time in politics, especially now, where things are so up in the air. Everything is so turbulent. I mean, you wouldn't have predicted 10 years ago that the Labour Party might end up on 12 seats.
No.
You wouldn't think there would be a single poll that would suggest anything even vaguely like that. It'd always be about 250 seats at minimum, you'd expect. But here we are in the new frontier, in the new era. And, what do you do? Now, if Rupert Lowe, his main strengths are the fact that he is likable, he has the X factor, and it's because he's got that sort of Trumpian energy to him in a British mould, as in he's obviously a very proud Englishman, and he doesn't care what they think. And this is very powerful.
I mean, that was a proper breakthrough.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember exactly what point it was, but at some point they went after him and they used the magic word.
Yeah.
They called him a racist.
I mean, Emily Maitlis. When he was,
yeah, I mean, that was a good on-screen example, but I think it happened on Twitter before then. But essentially, they went after him and said, we're going to use our magic word now, watch you shrivel.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care if you... And he keeps saying...
And I've been waiting for a politician to do that for a decade or more.
Yeah. Exactly. And he just restates his affirmative position, and then they're like, okay, well, I have to engage with that now.
Yes.
Calling you a racist didn't make you back down. And that's Rupert Lowe's true strength. He doesn't care what their opinion is. He doesn't respect them. And he does know what he wants to do. You know, It's one thing not respecting your opponents. If you don't have an affirmative plan of your own, then that's no good. But he does have something. And so it's honestly not beyond the realms of possibility that if the Conservative Party basically admits, yeah, okay, we've screwed it, right? We've totally stuffed it. Kemi is not coming back. You know, she's not building the Conservative Party back up. She's in fact one of the reasons that it's collapsing, and we need a complete overhaul, not just of who is managing the party, the sinews of the party, but the prevailing philosophy of the party.
But Kemi Badenoch is the leader of the party. I mean, all the leadership is invested in Parliament. Yep. Yes, to some extent, they're controlled by their to an element, they're controlled by their backers and their funders. Yep. Now, I don't know what their funding situation is, but in order because if Rupert would have to basically clear out the parliamentary party, and the parliamentary party controls the party, so it would have to get to the situation where post-election, their membership, their funding, their donations, everything dries up to the point where a backer can say, look, you guys are going to have to close down as a party because you literally cannot pay your bills unless you put Rupert Lowe in. So I just can't see a deal like that being done until after the election.
Well, I've heard that apparently the Conservatives don't really have local constituencies anymore.
Not really, no.
They only have party constituencies. Apparently they've all just packed up. A bunch of them defected to Reform, and those that were left have just given up. Because it looks like there's no coming back for them, right?
Yeah, they still have bills to pay, though. So
They do. But the point being, I think it is possible that, like, the 1922 committee and the sort of internal infrastructure of the party realises that they are essentially looking at the existential end of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, and Kemi Badenoch is part of that process, right? She is part of the reason, because say what you like about Kemi Badenoch, and I did enjoy her in the budget the other day, mean-girling Rachel Reeves. That was she was genuinely funny about it, where she was mocking her about mansplaining. But she's not a charismatic leader. She doesn't have the X factor, right? Yeah. She doesn't have it. Rupert Lowe does have it. And so it is entirely possible that it could be impressed upon the Conservatives. Look, you are just tinkering, fiddling on the deck of the Titanic, right? This is going down. And unless you actually do something significant, then you're going to go down.
Well, they were the party of government just over a year ago.
Yeah.
And they're now looking at 34 seats.
Yeah. Like Boris had 52% approval rating when he came in.
Yes. He had a super majority.
Yeah.
Majority of 80. He could have done anything he wanted.
Yeah. But he also had the goodwill of the country behind him.
Yeah.
52% approval is just mad. Like Keir Starmer had like 48% or something like that, and that just tanked instantly, obviously. And so the question is, how can the Conservatives recover? Well, it would be a hard-fought campaign against Nigel Farage, but I think actually Nigel Farage is beatable from the right. Right? You can beat Nigel Farage from the right. And the only reason that nobody's beating Nigel Farage from the right is because everyone is essentially to his left. Even then, like Keir Starmer is more right-wing on many issues than Nigel Farage, right?
Yes.
He is, but the problem that Keir Starmer
Shabana
has,
Mahmood definitely is.
But the problem that they have is the reverse Midas touch, right? Yeah. Everything they touch seems like a bad idea. Like, because the public were generally quite in favour of digital IDs until Keir Starmer was like, we're having digital IDs. Everyone was like, oh, no, we're not. Not from you. We read you as an enemy. You read to us as an enemy. Whereas Nigel Farage doesn't read as an enemy. Yeah. And this could... We're running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap this up. Basically, Rupert Lowe would have to have a hard-fought campaign that was polarising on the most important issue in the country at the moment, and that issue is immigration. It would have to be that he essentially has a campaign that says not one more, and that would put Nigel Farage and everyone else to his left, and Rupert Lowe would be the only person standing on the right, like Donald Trump would build the wall, right? Not one more. So everyone in the country, every party in the country, would have to argue that Rupert Lowe, oh no, that's outside of the bounds, we can't do that. And so Rupert Lowe, what he would have done is corralled his entire opposition onto the same plantation and crushed them there, right? So, the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Greens, the SNP, and Reform would all be like, no, we're not going to just stop immigration entirely. And it would turn the election into a referendum on immigration.
Yeah.
Are you for it or are you against it? And we already know that the British public is against immigration.
So do you think the time to act is now?
Yes.
Okay.
If I don't, loath as I am to save the Conservative Party, I think the way that they can pull this back is to literally make a big song and dance about this, right? And honestly, you kind of want Kemi Badenoch. She'd have to get over herself, right? She would have to admit you're not the person for the job.
Yeah.
That's what you have to admit.
I mean, in the middle of an English revolt, a first-generation Nigerian immigrant,
exactly,
it's not going to cut it.
I'm not saying that they need to kick Kemi Badenoch out of the party, because I actually, Kemi Badenoch has many things, but I actually don't think she's terrible, right?
Yeah.
What you want her to be is like the hatchet woman in charge of a department, right? I mean, you could put her in charge of the Home Office if you like, but basically you want Kemi Badenoch to essentially bully the crap out of the civil service, right? Because obviously she doesn't care about them or their feelings. It's just that she's not the leader, right? She's not the leader. She's not a coalition builder. She can't bring this back. As you say, an immigrant in the middle of an English revolt, not the right person, but she could be like the Morgan, not Morgan McSweeney, but like the person who makes a bunch of unpopular decisions with the civil service.
It's very rare for somebody to voluntarily put themselves in the background, though.
It is, but they're going to lose. So it's literally
even in those situations.
Look, you can keep driving the car, but we're going off a cliff. Are you sure you want to keep driving the car? Because we're all going off the cliff.
Most people drive off the cliff in that situation.
They do, but they don't have to. They actually do have the option of saying, look, actually, we're going to do something radical. Now, this would have a couple of effects. It would be, like you say, very unusual, so it'd be very noteworthy. All of the political commentariat, they'd be like, oh my goodness, she's stepping down. Well, who they bring in? Oh my God. And then Rupert Lowe, Conservative Party conference, gives a banger speech where he's just like, no, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, and finally, not one more immigrant. And he literally invoke Enoch Powell, right? Bring it in. Like, since the days of Enoch Powell, the British public have been against mass immigration, and now the country is 70% English. Not
that
one
would be a hell of a
more.
pitch.
It'd be everywhere, right? Suddenly, what would Farage say? No, who cares what Nigel Farage has got to say? Nigel Farage, oh no, I would never, I'm not a racist. Yeah. I would never go down that road.
No, we have to appease them until they take over is his stance.
Exactly. And so that puts Nigel Farage, Lib Dems, the Greens, the SNP, and the Labour Party all on the same page. They are pro-immigration. They are the pro-immigration parties. And the Conservatives, under Rupert Lowe, would be the only anti-immigration party, explicitly stated.
I don't wildly hate this happening after the election, though, because I don't think anything stops this reform train. Not at this point.
I think that would stop the reform train. And I think that you run a very aggressive campaign. You can easily find lots of clips of Nigel Farage saying, I'm actually for immigration. There was one the other day saying, I'm not a populist. Do you remember that? He was being interviewed by like the Times or something. He's like, I've realised I'm not a populist. No, you're not a populist, Nigel. You're pro-immigration elitist. I agree with you.
Yeah.
You could easily do it if you were Rupert Lowe and you had charge of the Conservatives.
Isn't populist just the Greek word for democracy?
Yes, that's correct. It's the Latin word for democracy.
The Latin word.
Democracy is the Greek word. But yes, that's exactly what
it is. And this is the weird thing about politics, is they come out and say, I'm for democracy, I'm against populism. They're literally the same thing.
Yes. That's exactly correct. But the point is, Rupert Lowe could polarise the national debate on the election into two camps, him and everyone else. And he would actually have the position that the public actually support.
The pushback you're going to get from Reform if you did that is that if this movement, if this Reform train gets split, what if it puts in the Green Party? or a Green Tory Labour coalition?
That's a great question. Reform are the ones who split the Tory vote, right? And have now, by dint of not being the Conservatives, got to this position. But the Conservatives have lost their place because they're not Conservative, because they're not representative of what the country actually wants. I think that Rupert Lowe and a reformed Conservative Party being incredibly aggressive, and again Trumpian, right? He has to understand, and Rupert Lowe thankfully has already established, I don't care about their opinions. He has to understand he will arouse the ire of all of the liberal intelligentsia, up unto and including the Reform Party, right? But the public will agree with him. The public, and we know this from polling from the 1970s till now, about 70% of people just do not want any more immigration. They're just tired of it. They've had enough. They either want it reduced a little bit or a lot. And if you turn it into a binary question, immigration, yes or no, it'll be like Brexit. People will just vote, yeah, no, I just don't, I'm voting for the no because I'm sick of it. Look at these fucking foreigners everywhere. I'm sick of it. And that's what Rupert Lowe could do if the Conservatives understand that this is the only path they have to survival.
Yeah.
And if they don't...
I don't think they understand that yet.
I don't think they do either. And the thing is, I don't even think it would take very long to do this, right? Like, Nigel Farage has flipped this very, very quickly. Well, we still got 4...
So whilst I agree with you that it's possible to do it before the election, I think what you're describing probably pays out after the election.
Quite possibly. But if I were the Conservatives and Rupert Lowe, and I wanted... Because Rupert Lowe keeps saying, it's got to be 2029 that the Patriots win, right? He doesn't stipulate himself. He says the Patriots, the based side of it has to win. And I genuinely think that what I'm proposing here is a route to a majority. So anyway, that's...
All right, good chat.
We'll leave that there. But anyway, let us know what you think, folks. We'll, of course, be reading the comments on this. But, what we've said, none of this could come to pass. Like, nothing here may come to pass. But like so, 4 years out from the election, 4 years is a long time in politics. Who knows what happens? Maybe Nigel Farage, has a heart attack. Something interesting is going to happen, though. The point is, there is a kind of revolt going on, and we are in uncharted waters. So anyone who tells you this is definitely going to happen, they know what the future holds with this, they don't. So anyway, exciting times.